So this is week one of. I'm your host Robert Jarvis. I have just bought 32 chickens for my family's farm, and we are super excited to watch them grow. The recap from week one has been pretty interesting. We have watched 32 chickens grow. We've watched our lives change significantly. It's almost like having a newborn in terms of trying to keep them heated, trying to make sure that they have all that they need, and make sure that they're not sick. We did unfortunately lose 2 chicks. That was a low light of the week. But a lot of fun has happened. The chicks have grown phenomenally. We have about 7 breeds, and it's going to be super awesome to watch them grow, and they're starting to fly across their little coops now.
So one of the first things that you should know about me is I'm probably the last person that you could imagine having a flock of chickens, much less 32. I grew up in suburban Detroit. I only know of chicken coming from fast food restaurants, and I hadn't the slightest idea of what even chicken feed looked like. So today on our first episode of Reality Chicks, I'm going to talk to you about what this week of transformation has looked like for me and my family. But first, how did we even get here? Well, as you can imagine, this COVID-19 pandemic that has been sweeping the globe has been making me very conscious of food insecurity. It has been a dream of both me and my wife to be sustainable farmers with the ability to support ourselves, homestead fashion. We're blessed to have a few acres of land and privacy. All we need are some farmers. This all started a few weeks ago, as all eccentric journeys do, with a post on Facebook Marketplace advertising a free chicken coop. Through much trial and tribulations, we were able to finally relocate said chicken coop to our property, and then we were locked in on taking the next step. I work in high tech, so I'm used to a high level execution, so I mapped out the next step and the next step after that, but we figured we would have some time before we needed to actually get the chickens. My wife told me the pullets, also known as female chicks, had a 4-week lead time, so we went to the feed store to place an order. But we found out due to high demand that they were no longer taking reservation orders. This and the news reports about meat shortages had me on high alert. So I did what was only natural. Staked out the feed store like it was Black Friday when the next batch of chicks came in.
So the main thing during week one of baby chicks is mainly ensuring that they stay alive. So every night, one of my most challenging things to do is to come out to the tanks, make sure they're not too hot, which usually they are a little too hot, and also making sure to cycle out their poop. They like to put a lot of stuff in their tank. For example, they like to put a lot of stuff in their water. Like they always kick their pellets in there. They like to poop on their food supply. So you have to make sure to clean that out. You also want to check their tail feather area out for sticky butt. It's a big deal. They can die, or it's called pasty butt actually. They can die just from that. You also have to watch for them pecking each other. They like to do that. And as you can see, if you go around the tanks, all these chickens, and some of them may be roosters, but whether they're hens, roosters, or whatever the case might be, they all have different personalities, even at this young age. This tank right here, this is tank 3. We've got 2 Russian Orloffs. Those are the biggest ones in there. We've got 4 ISA Browns or ISA Browns. We also have apparently 4 Australopes, even though this little one right here looks totally different from this little one right here that's being chased around. And then we have 2 little Rhode Island Reds, and I call these ones Debo because they're always trying to take somebody out in here. They're always running around doing something, and they like to friendly peck each other, but you do have to watch out. You have to watch out to make sure they're not getting a little too hot and bothered about that. It is part of establishing their pecking order. I highly recommend that you get some Vaseline or some kind of antibiotic and creams to have on board just in case they do get pasty butt and things of that nature. One of the things that you can do to keep it cooling, keep it cool in the cage, so to speak, is you can have wood that you can put over it. you can put the wood over the stock tank to try to keep some of the heat in there. I found some problems with that. That's like been the biggest problem for week 1 is keeping enough heat in the stock tanks. They actually start to grow feathers pretty fast. All of these chicks have been born in the last 2 weeks, give or take. Some even just 1 week. So keeping them alive, keeping them happy, keeping them warm is a critical part of week 1. And these ones are so much like, they're just this cool little group. They had one chick die in there earlier this week. I'm not sure what happened. You do have to take a look at their situation and just make sure that they're comfortable all the time. But most of the time, another thing that I would say is, I don't know if they have a shot of it right now because they're pretty riled up, but when chicks lay down, they look dead. And that's one of the freakiest things to get used to is the way that they just lay out. They just crumple over in a little heap of chickness, and you never know. You have to take care of their feet. These are the Easter eggers right here.
What have been the most rewarding part of this process so far?
Is it 104 in here? Yeah. What has been the most rewarding part of this process so far? Just kind of changing your lifestyle. I said that's the biggest thing. I'm not a morning person, but every morning I have to get up, diligently clean their water tanks and make sure that their food's cleaned up and not pooped in. They love to poop in their food. They love to poop in their water. It's part of the deal with chicks. They just don't care. Also, you'll notice they start to fly really early. I was a little surprised by that. They actually fly pretty early on in life. They're not waiting to go. They're like literally that chick phase where they look cute and fluffy. That lasts for a little while. As you see, they're still a little fluffy, but they look more like small birds at this point. And they can coast through the tank. And you do have to be ready for blocking off the tank so that you don't come in one day and see your chicks just all running around inside of your area. So that's something to get ready for. And I've already got a cage on order I'm going to disassemble and kind of block off the tops with. But yeah, the other thing is the heat. I mean, these 2 tanks are 102 right now. It is so frustrating to come in here all the time and adjust the heat. I recommend if you can, if you have a small batch of chicks, if you want to keep them in your a room that's already kind of got some heat to it and you can keep the lights away from them. But you do have to be careful. These lights right here, you also have to be careful that they don't get wet. They will shatter if they get wet. Those are all things to think about in your setup. As you see here, I got a simple, I'm using stock tanks. These are 2 by 2 by 3. 2 feet high, 2 feet across, and then 3 feet long. And also, we got some longer ones just to add more room. But they were on a shortage when I first went there. But the other thing is we used pine pellets. And these pine pellets really help keep the smell down. I saw that they had that like that at the feed store, so I decided I'm gonna go ahead with it. Chickens really like red. It's a really good color. You want to make sure that you don't have bright lights in the area around them and that you do elect to go with a red light. And I'm going to tell you why. It's really important because chicks will go after things that they see that look different. So if another chicken has a wound, they're going to continue pecking at that. That's just how they are. They're inquisitive. And the red light actually helps hide some of that. So if a chick gets hurt, it's easier for it to be concealed because they don't see it as blood. They just see kind of a different color, which they'll still go to after a little bit, but blood is a bad thing to be present in your tank. The food dishes are red, the drink is red, and of course the lights are red in my setup here. And I highly recommend those colors, especially the light, because bright lights are one of the biggest areas of concern for little chicks. It's pecking at their fellow chicks' feet because they see their shiny nails. So you really want to have that red light to block out some of that color, and it helps protect the pecking from happening. I've also heard that if you put styrofoam in there about the size of your hand, it gives them something to peck at if pecking's a problem. But I'm not sure I want to go down that road yet, especially with chicks this young. They might eat it, get sick, and all that fun stuff. So that's all for this week on Reality Chicks. I'm Robert Jarvis. Thanks for tuning in.